Good morning. Today we look at the book of Obadiah. One chapter, 21 verses. And Obadiah, there are several people in the Old Testament named Obadiah. The name is sometimes said to mean servant of the Lord. But of this Obadiah, which one it could be is, and exactly when it was written, are both uncertain. After the fall of Jerusalem, very evident by the language in it. And it's, again, judgment and justice coming to these who have been sinful, to these who have not done the work of God, the will of God, in so many different ways. These Edomites are descendants of Esau, who is Jacob's brother. And, as we read back in, way back in the Old Testament, the earlier part, Esau and Jacob were twins. And Jacob, came out of the womb, it says, holding on to Esau's heel. And Jacob, stole the birthright. And, and so all of this, this Jacob who we track, so much of God's love and favor, has been, deceitful in many different aspects of his life. But as he had come back home again, Esau welcomed him with open arms, and there was a joyous reunification, and they worked together in peace and harmony, it seemed. But here, as we get later years in the Old Testament, there is animosity, or maybe I shouldn't call it that, but anyway, the book begins the vision of Obadiah, and that's as we had read just like in Amos and as well, the word of the Lord came to me, or there were 5 visions, as well that that these prophets were shown, and so it's kind of like a dream. But it's a vision that God implants upon their mind so that they share with the people. And, the vision is, thus says the Lord God concerning Edom. And so again, these Edom, the Edomites, the people, these descendants of Esau, relatives, kinfolk of all of the Israelites. We have heard a report, and the messenger has been sent. Rise up, let us rise up for battle. I will make you least among the nations. Not a good promise to hear, to be the least among the nations. Your proud heart has deceived you. You live and you say in your heart, who will bring me down? I mean, they're full of pomp, built up, with themselves. They're overconfident in their abilities. It says, though you soar aloft like an eagle, though your nest is set among the clouds, from there I will bring you down, says the Lord. And, so it's just one more of those reminders of this judgment and justice that's going to be coming from God. Because, when we get, as I said, too full of ourselves that way and just overconfident and kind of forgetting who God is what they were doing. And then the question, if thieves came to you, if plunderers came by night, how have you been destroyed? Would they steal only what they wanted? Well, of course, they take it all. And this is kind of the story a little bit too of Jerusalem, the fall of Jerusalem, the fall of Judah, the southern kingdom, and basically the fall of southern kingdom and northern kingdom, and being pillaged. It says, verse 6, how Esau has been pillaged, past tense, it's already done. All your allies have deceived you. And verse 8, on that day I will destroy the wise out of Edom and understanding out of outside. Your warriors will be shattered. You're going to be crushed by outside forces, by outside lands that will come in. And it said, and why? For the violence and slaughter done to your brother Jacob. Shame will cover you. You will be cut off. On that day you stood aside, You didn't help your brother Jacob against these enemies. You stood and you watched thinking that, okay, it's happening to him, it's not going to affect me. And, so often in life today, something might be going on that we don't approve of, but we say, well, it's not affecting me. And it's made very clear. Just the other day, again, I saw, for, I don't know, many, many times I've seen it, but a professor comes into the classroom and asks one person, what's your name? And says to that person, get out of my classroom. You cannot be in my classroom. I don't want you. And this professor, of course, doesn't know this person at all, but expels this person from class, and it, continues to go around panning the other students, and they're sitting there in shock and disbelief, but yet not one of them says a word. And so then, after this poor student leaves the room, the professor says, why didn't any of you speak up? You have just seen dictatorship. You have just seen, something that should never have happened. But yet, not one of you stood up and said a thing. Why? Because it didn't affect you. And I see those, and I often wonder, well, did that professor finally send somebody out of the room? Did that professor get a hold of that poor student and tell him, this was all, a ruse, that, you're welcome, come back. But even if the professor did, how would that student feel, having been highlighted, having been, picked out so blatantly and so cruelly? I mean, would that person, that person would be devastated. If that happened to me, I don't know if I'd probably leave school. It's just terrible. But, this is what God said. You stood and did nothing. The injustice was done, and you didn't try to help. And so it's, verse 12, you should not have gloated over your brother on the day of his misfortune. You should not have rejoiced that the people of Judah were overcome on their ruin. You should not have boasted on the day of their distress. You should not have entered the gate of my people. You should not have come in with the other enemies and done some of the plundering and taken advantage of the situation. What you should have done is not what you did not do. You did not help. And, it's just, we don't have to do a lot. We don't have to move a mountain. We don't have to give billions of dollars to anybody. We just have to share a little bit of love and grace and show people that we care. To be a part of a community that builds each other up. Going on, verse 15, the day of the Lord is near against all nations. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your deeds shall return to you. Karma again. And it's just, that's, God is saying, you didn't help. You have been plundering, and it's going to happen to you. You're going to be plundered. You're going to be destroyed. You're going to be scattered. All of this is going to happen. The promise of Obadiah comes in just the last two verses. The exiles of the Israelites shall possess Phoenicia as far as Zarephath, and the exiles of Jerusalem shall possess the towns of the Negev. Those who have been saved shall go up to Mount Zion, and the kingdom of the Lord will be the Lord's. And so this, we read yesterday of, 10,000 went out, or 1,000 went out, and 100 were saved. 100 went out, this 10%. So this fragment, this little segment, this remnant of Israel will return and will again live in the land that God has promised them. And the kingdom will again and always belong to God.